Hey everyone, and welcome to the NintendoFuse Podcast. Here we are at episode 174, entitled Detective Pikachu and E3 2019 Plans. My name is Steve, but I am also joined here by my good friend Barry. Hey Barry, how's it going?
Hey, Steve. Always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, for sure. Greg, similar to the last podcast, will join us a little bit later. He got detained a little bit, but we would love for you guys to join in, as you always do, in the chat room. If you're watching live, we love to hear about your thoughts about what we're talking about and everything right in the chat room. So be sure to do that if you're watching live. If you're watching after the fact, be sure to throw your comments down there as well. If you are listening on one of your podcast apps of choice, there's like so many podcast apps out there. But if you're just listening, we would also love a positive review if you enjoy what you're hearing. Would be great if you did recommend to us to other Nintendo fans out there as well. We also love connecting with you outside of the podcast. So if you're not following us on social media, please do that. And we also, I think we announced this the last podcast, we actually have a Discord channel out there too. So the link to that is in our YouTube description and also in the show notes for the podcast. We would love for you to join in there. Follow us on social media, just at NintendoFuse on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And we'd love for to have this conversation outside of just these the Monday nights on the podcast. So before we jump into any of the news discussion and talk about Detective Pikachu and all that stuff tonight, let's talk about what we've been playing. So Barry, what's been occupying your Nintendo Switch recently?
Actually, unlike some other podcasts, I got a couple things. After the last podcast, I did play through Mortal Kombat 11, which was a lot of fun and ran very well on the Switch. And I heard there's an update to make it run even better, but everything I did was before that update. And then I did Dragon Marked for Death, which is a game I've wanted to play. I kind of missed the boat on it because it's a very difficult single player, and co-op definitely makes it easier. And there's nobody, like there's no rooms. I tried searching, so I gave up after a little bit just because I just didn't feel like sitting there grinding just to try to overcome that hurdle single player. And then I moved to the Capcom Beat 'em Up bundle. I went through a couple of those games. As you know, it was digital here, but it actually came out physically in Japan, and it's completely in English. So I bought the Japanese, popped it in, played all the games in English. They have menus, everything's in English.
Does it start in English or does it start in Japanese?
No, the whole thing starts in English. The only difference is it's called the Capcom Belt Action Collection instead of the Beat 'em Up Collection. But you actually can play the English or the Japanese version of any game. And by default, it starts in English because my system is set to English. So yeah, the whole game is there in physical, all the games in the physical card. So I played through some of those, and those are a lot of fun. I used to love those back in the day when the arcades ruled my life. So yeah, that's what I've been playing on the Switch. Still doing Dragalia Lost on the phone. The Fire Emblem event is ending today. That's been a lot of fun. And they're doing something which I'm glad they're doing for newcomers. They're starting to bring back old events. So if you missed events, you missed facilities and stuff, they're bringing them back with a new difficulty tier for people who have done it before, so newbies and veterans can enjoy. I think that's smart. It allows them to pad out content too. Still doing Pokemon Go, although I'm this close to quitting it. Just I'm capped on inventory, capped on Pokemon, and it's like, do I really want to go through 2,000 Pokemon and figure out which ones are not 90 plus IVs? No, I really don't. There's other things I'd rather do. So yeah, it's getting a little on the tougher side. And of course, still playing Final Fantasy 14. Little more than a month away from that expansion. I'm looking forward to, and yeah, that just captivated all my time, everything else.
Nice. Did you happen to play Mortal Kombat online, or did you just play through the single player
I
stuff?
did not play online. I'm not a very big competitive fighting fan. I'm more of the casual, and Mortal Kombat's one of those that has a really good story. Like, I just really enjoy the story, even though it's campy and cheesy and gory and stupid. I just have always enjoyed it. So I played through for the story. I went through the crypt a little bit. I like what they did with the crypt this time, but I'm not a fan of it at the same time. Like, the Crypt. Do you know? Have you played Mortal Kombat with the Crypt before?
No, I'm familiar with like the past ones, like the first like 3 or 4 games, but I haven't played it in a long time.
So what they did is they decided to do this thing for unlockables called the Crypt. And in previous games, it was you go through with currency that you get from the game, and you open up, chests.
Okay.
And you get different skins, different fatalities, different costumes, different artwork, and you can look up a guide online. It's like, oh, if you want Sub-Zero's alternate outfit, go to this particular gravestone and pop it open. Cool. So this time they decided to make it like a 3D explorable area, and it's Shang Tsung's island. And it's really cool because that's where Mortal Kombat 1 takes place. So all the Mortal Kombat 1 stages are there, recreated. Even like the pit where, bodies are falling and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like all the statues of everyone are there. Like it's just really cool to see. And you get to explore the island. There's puzzles. You get Raiden's staff and use that to open up a door. And you get, Montaro's horn and use that and open the door. Really interesting stuff. But, and here's the big but, the chests, which cost anywhere from like 1,000 to 15,000 gold, are randomized with the exception of like 4 or 5. So if you want a particular item, and there's certain items you need to progress that you need to get from chests. So you can get lucky and open it on your first chest, or you can literally farm the game for all the money and get it on your last chest.
Wow.
And a lot of the chests are just, here's concept art. Thanks for spending 15,000 coins on concept art that you don't really care about. It looks like a 5-year-old drew this. Yay. So I did everything I could without having to grind, and like some of them you do like 10 fatalities and 10 brutalities and like tower modes. I don't really care about that. I'm done.
Yeah.
I did the story. I played around the Crypt. That's it. But I'm not a fan that everything is randomized, or the most everything is randomized.
Yeah, that does sound weird. So how long did it take you to complete all that stuff? Like, is there a lot of game there, or?
The story goes by pretty quickly, although of course I played it on the easiest difficulty. I just wanted to see the story. I think it probably took me about 5 hours, 4 to 5 hours, which is pretty meaty for a fighting game.
Yeah.
But yeah, then there's like daily towers you can do, and some of these towers you need to bring like certain items like RPG style. You need to bring like a potion or something to help you, and the battles are so difficult that some of them are impossible to beat without the items. But the items are consumables, so they're like, oh well, I need to beat this dungeon in Zelda. I need the hook shot. Well, I have the hook shot infinitely. It's like, oh no, you have to remember to bring the hook shot. You have one use of the hook shot. If you miss, you got to go back and find another one.
Gosh.
And some of this stuff comes from the Crypt. So have fun going back to the Crypt to the random items to get.
So, I mean, I guess it adds to the replayability, but at an annoying level, and not if you want to go back and keep playing it.
Again, if you're a hardcore fighting game fan, like this is what you play. You'll sit there and you will play Mortal Kombat 11 for the next 4 months competitively online. Then none of this should even be an issue. But if you're just super casual, you just want to experience it and move on, then yeah, that's something that I've decided it wasn't worth my time. I have too many other games in the backlog. However, I do recommend the game. I did have a lot of fun. I think the fighting is very, very fluid. It worked. It was responsive. It was very impressive on the Switch. And of course, since they've done an update, it's even better. My biggest complaint is because Midway, or Warner Brothers now, I should say, was cheap and used the smallest card and cheapest card possible. There was I think it took me like 3 hours to download the update when you put in the game. So I didn't even get to play the game for like 3 hours after popping it in.
Wow.
So that was kind of disheartening. Like just I would pay another $10 to have a bigger card and have all this stuff on there. And I know I'm not alone in that.
Yeah. So because like the last, I think Mortal Kombat game I played was maybe 3 Ultimate, so it's been a while. Do they keep the controls the same like they do with Street Fighter? Because I've been staying up on top of Street Fighter stuff, or do they change it? Okay.
No, like if you did Sub-Zero's freeze move in Mortal Kombat 1, the Hadouken, the quarter circle, it's still the same. Raiden's, his fly across the screen, still the same. The spear from Scorpion. Those are all the same, and you actually get different move sets. You can, and here's another thing: like they try to make this as in-depth as possible, and it kind of, I feel, overcomplicates it. And what I mean by that, like in Smash Brothers, like if you want to be Mario with the American hat from US Open or NES Open, you just push R until you hit it. Great. Well, so you unlock a new skin in Sub-Zero. Let's say it's the classic skin. Like, oh, I want to be classic Sub-Zero. You can't just push R. You have to go in. You have to set your character profile, and you get like 8 character profiles per character, and make this classic Sub-Zero. Put what moves you want there, and like you build the whole character, which is cool in a concept. But for casual, I just want to go through the costumes. And there's something like 100 and something costumes, like different character models, and there's even maybe more. There's like 20. It feels like 20 per character, so there's definitely more. And it's like overkill. And like some of them come from the crypt, some of them from doing different objectives. Another negative thing that I did notice, and I will just say this quickly, is when going through the story. Like when you beat missions or you beat like fights in the story, you get rewards, you get costumes, you get money, you get all this stuff, which is cool. Well, I played the story in 2 parts. I did all I could in the first part, and then I went to bed. I put my Switch in sleep mode. I came back, put my Switch back up, and did the next fight. And when I did the fight, when I came back, I noticed it had disconnected from the server. And when I did the fight, I didn't get any rewards. I was like, what the heck? So I did another fight, and again, I didn't get the rewards. I closed the program, rebooted it, and sure enough, now I got rewards. So you need to be online to get rewards, which is really weird because you can't go back and get those rewards if you're offline, or at least I wasn't able to for those fights. So I was like, oh, are you serious? And the game did crash for me several times, especially in the crypt. Same areas, too. It just like fatal error occurred, back to the home screen. So I don't know if it was a problem with the cart, because most of it is downloaded anyways, or if it's just was a bug that maybe they've fixed since then. But yeah, like that was another deter for me with the crypt. Like after so many times of it crashing on me, I'm like, it's not worth it. Done.
Yeah. Wow. Huh. That's interesting. So it sounds like it's not incredibly built for the casual player, so I'll probably stay away from it, because I'm definitely an incredibly casual player of Mortal Kombat.
I would say don't get it right now. I would say if you have time later and it's like $20 or less, it's definitely worth it. I mean, just for the story, the crazy story, the gore is insane to see, in a Nintendo game. But yeah, like, although the story kind of does a giant FU as well. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but it does have one of those stories that at the end you're either going to absolutely love where they go, or you're going to be like, seriously, like really, oh my god. But I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah. Wow. We'll see. Yeah, I know Greg was planning on getting it as well, so we'll see when he comes on, depending on where we're at in the podcast, if we'll have any thoughts on it as well. My time over the last week or a couple weeks I thought I was going to have more time to play. So actually, I did an opposite of you. I've had more time recently in the past weeks to play more games and everything. This past week, I thought I was going to have more time, and I didn't. Even in my travels and stuff, I took my Switch with me. I was gone for like a whole week and had a couple flights and some time in the airport and everything. And I spent zero amount of time on the Switch the whole time. I never even opened the case and got it out. But while I've been home and everything, I've been playing a lot more Rocket League. Surprise, surprise. But I did go ahead and buy the premium Rocket Pass this last time. And so it just got me to play a lot more too. So I been able to get a lot more bonuses and stuff this time around. And this time it's, I don't know if you've played around with the Rocket Pass stuff at all, but you basically get a bunch of goodies and stuff when you reach different levels. And now with the third one, they have challenges in there as well that add to your XP. So not only are you leveling up each time you level up in the game, you also get more points or XP toward your your rocket pass level up when you complete these different challenges. So it kind of gives you different things, and I'm trying out different things because I'm not a big fan of a couple other special modes, but one of the challenges was to win 2 games in one of the special modes. So it made me play it. And so I realized it was like, oh, okay, this isn't actually as bad as I thought it was before. I'm getting the hang of it. So that's been cool. It's kind of getting me to explore different aspects of the game. But yeah, we actually do have a if you're a Rocket League fan, you listen to the podcast, we do have a clan on there too. Just search for NintendoFuse. I don't know if I can share that out or what. I don't really do a whole lot in there with the club, but it is available. So if you can find us, you can join. I think right now it's just Blake and me in there, but because we haven't really done anything with it. But yeah, so Jakester is talking about the 64 gig Switch cartridge. He doesn't get why it's that expensive. I think we agree. It doesn't really make sense why it's that expensive, and why a lot of the companies are basically forced if they want to save money, they have to go with the smaller cartridge. So it's really unfortunate. It makes you have a 3-hour download.
I don't think they're forced to.
Well,
I think they're just trying to increase their profit.
Yeah,
and they can make more money this way, and while appeasing the physical collectors. But I don't know how many people remember this, but back in the PS1 Saturn 64 generation, a game would come out on PS1 and N64 at the same time, and the PS1 one was like $40, and the N64 one was like $80. Because the CD cost nothing to print, and those N64 cartridges were expensive. And the N64 carts still sold. We still bought them. Mm-hmm. So I think if you were to just charge an extra $10, and then some games do, they call it the Switch tax.
Right.
Some games do have that extra $10. People buy it. People will buy it. Even if they said, you know what, why don't you take a survey? Would you guys like to pay $60 for the game and have a 3-hour download, and the rest on the card, or would you like to pay even $20 more? Let's say $80 for the game, but all of it's on the card. I think the majority of people will say $80 for the game, because if anyone wants it physically, they're going to want the whole thing anyways. If you don't care about physical media, then you're going to download it, and you're going to pay the $60 to download it regardless. That's not going to change the digital price. So I think you should, let us get a choice.
Sure. Yeah. Well, let's move into a little more discussion. So back on May 10th, so a whole, what was that, like 3 days ago, Detective Pikachu hit the theaters a week later than it did in Japan. And it hit the week before in Japan, but here in the United States, we got it on May 10th. And yeah, so if you're unfamiliar with this game, the movie, we don't really talk about movies too often here on the podcast. So I'm stuck on games. So if you're unfamiliar with the movie, it's loosely based on the video game of the same name, of Detective Pikachu. But it's directed by Rob Letterman, and starring Ryan Reynolds as Detective Pikachu, and also Justice Smith, Catherine Newton, and a host of other great actors. And yeah, like I said, it came out this last week, at the end of last week. Barry, did you get a chance to see it?
I did not. This weekend was pretty busy for me. We do want to see it. Hopefully we can see it by next weekend. But yeah, we've heard great things about it, but I have not seen it yet.
I did, and it was cool. I really enjoyed it, and I think actually Jakester said this in the chat. He said he recommends it to fans of Pokemon and newcomers, and I think that's a really good summary of what my recommendation is too. I think it's good for those people that love Pokemon, and you're going to catch so many different references and Easter eggs throughout this entire movie. But for those newcomers that don't really know a whole lot about it at all, I think it's a great movie. So my wife and I both saw it, and I know a lot more about Pokemon than she does, but not nearly as much as some hardcore Pokemon fan. And so we both really enjoyed it. My wife thought Pikachu was just adorable the whole time, and all the other Pokemon and everything, she was just awing and doing her thing, that what she does when she sees animals that are cute and Pokemon that are cute and things like that the whole time through. She's like, oh, but yeah, it was a heartwarming story. It's a family friendly story. So if you're listening and you are a younger kid or you have younger kids, this is something that you can take your family to go see. One of the casual comments I saw online, which I thought was really funny, was someone said, I can't take this movie seriously, so I'm just going to wait till it comes on Netflix. I was like, this movie is not meant to be taken seriously. It's just a fun, family-friendly movie with a good, heartwarming story, and that's all it is. Don't take it for anything more serious than that. But if that's what you're looking for, that's based around Pokemon, it was fun. I had a great time with it, and it's built around this. I don't want to give any spoilers or anything like that, but it's built around this kid. He's like a young adult in the movie. I think he's maybe somewhere around 20 years old or something like that. And his estranged father goes missing, and it's up to Detective Pikachu and him to figure out what happened and what's going on with the world and what happened to his dad and all that stuff. And so it was fun. It's like I said, it was a heartwarming story in the end and everything too.
That sounds very similar to the game itself, because I played through part of the game. That was the basic storyline for that too.
Yeah, and they really did. I didn't play the game, but I've read a lot about the game and heard other people talk. And I think there's a lot of tie-in, but it's not the exact same thing. Like,
does it have APOMs with like lying on the ground that look dead and it looks like they got blood all over them, but it's really just ketchup?
They don't have that, but there are they do. They're definitely involved. I'll just say.
Well, I know they're in the story,
yeah.
But like one of the first things you do is you have to find out what happened to this APOM, and it's lying there, and it looks like it's dead and bleeding, and it's all ketchup all over it instead.
Yeah, it's not quite that, but there is something that happens to them at the very beginning that you got to figure out why and what's going on. So I think if you have played the game, you're going to catch a lot of stuff. You're going to know what's basically going on there, but not everything.
Now, here's a question. Since you saw this movie, does it make you want to pick up the 3DS and play through the game?
I haven't thought about that. So this is the first time I didn't even pose that question to myself. So I guess my gut reaction says no. I have not thought about even picking it up, mostly because I don't actually own the game. I think if I had access to it really quick and everything, I probably would. But has it caused me, or has it made me want to go out and buy it and play it? No, I don't think so. I think, I don't, unless someone can prove to me like it's a different experience and it's a different enough experience and it's worth it, then no, because I feel like I got enough of what that story was about in a 2-hour movie instead.
Understandable. Yeah. Now, did you hear about the incident that happened with Detective Pikachu over in Canada?
I don't think I did. I heard about the movie being leaked online.
No, there was a movie theater in Canada. This was tweeted about. Actually, Screen Rant, Ryan George tweeted this live because he was there with his kids. And when the movie started, they started with the trailers. And the first trailer that came on was Annabelle Comes Home. Then was the new Joker trailer, and finally the new Chucky trailer. And at this point, kids are like crying and stuff, like what's going on? And apparently, the next thing is the movie starts, and it's The Curse of La Llorona, which is a new horror movie. And that movie apparently starts with a mother drowning her child. So naturally, at this point, kids are screaming, crying, parents are furious. They stopped the movie. They wound up, obviously moving everybody to another theater where Detective Pikachu is playing, giving free movie passes and all that. But meanwhile, this was a night showing, I believe. So the kids are now going to have nightmares and parents are furious. And of course, there are some adults that don't like horror films. So now they're really like, what the heck is going on? So all these kids, family evening out in Canada, and they got all this horror stuff going on.
Oh man, no, I I heard about that's awful. Because yeah, my wife and I were like, other than the other parents in the room, we were by far the oldest people in the theater watching the movie. It was like the 5 o'clock showing or whatever. We got, the nice and simple uh trailers and everything for ours, the ones that are intended to be there. But that's hilarious and sad all at the same time.
Yeah, you can look it up online. The tweets are out there with the video, and you can see like he has video on Twitter with the movie playing when the trailer's playing, and you can hear the kids like screaming and stuff, and it's like he's laughing the whole time about it. Like, oh, like this is hilarious. This is actually happening. But yeah, it's funny after the fact. I feel for those kids. I feel for those parents that have to deal with that. If I was in that situation and it was my kids that were now like traumatized or really upset, like I'd be more furious. But because I'm divorced from that situation, I can laugh at it. But yeah, it is terrible at the same time.
Oh man, yeah. Well, the real version of Detective Pikachu is incredibly family friendly, so you don't have to worry about that at all. But that's wow. Yeah, I agree. It's really sad, but kind of funny as well. Oh wow. So yeah, hopefully you get to see it, Detective Pikachu. Do you have plans to go see it, or are you just gonna?
Nothing concrete. It all depends. It really depends on my wife's schedule. She was supposed to be working from home for next few months because her place of business, they're doing reconstruction. They're merging a couple buildings or a couple sites into one, so they're doing a lot of construction. And on her first week that she was supposed to be home, they called her in. They're like, hey, come on in. We have a meeting you need to be here for. And they promoted her, which is great. But now that she has a whole bunch of other stuff, so now what she thought was going to be an easier schedule is now packed full. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to see it without her. So I'm just like, all right, we'll have to find time.
Yeah. We've unfortunately, it's a similar story actually to a couple people. We were just a coincidence. We've been talking to some other people to add to our NintendoFuse team, and a couple of them have actually gotten promotions as well, which has made their schedules tougher, and so they haven't been able to jump on our team yet. But yeah, good news, bad news sort of situations there.
Yeah. So do we plan to? Yes. Do we have concrete plans to? Not yet. Well, hopefully we get some time. We like to hit matinees, which of course hurts because we can usually only do that in the weekends, and we do have plans on the weekends, usually in the mornings, to go to the gym with friends. So I was like, we'll figure out some time to do it.
Yeah. One of the things that I noticed in this movie was that the CGI was actually really good. There were only a couple times where I noticed that it was a little off. Usually when I'm blanking on that Tim is the main character, when he was like holding Pikachu, I was like, that doesn't exactly look quite right. But 98% of the CGI was actually really impressive, which kind of just leads me, before we jump into any of the other game news, just kind of speculate a little bit. What do you think the success of this movie, which I think it had success. It didn't top Endgame by any means. But I think overall it's a really successful movie. Yeah. I think right now it's sitting at like 70 on Rotten Tomatoes. It might be higher by now.
It was the #1 domestic opening for a video game movie of all time.
Cool. So what do you think that might translate into in the future for Nintendo and movies? Like, do you think we'll see more and better video game movies, or what do you think? Because in my opinion, this is one of the only video game movies that I've ever said, yeah, this is good from the very beginning. Not because of based on nostalgia or anything like that. This is actually just a really good movie, and we don't get to say that very often about video game movies.
I think anything can translate well to the big screen if it's written well, if it's directed well, if it's shot well, and if it's acted well. And I think that, and edited well too. I mean, like, that goes without saying. Do I think that this will help instill confidence in Nintendo? Yes, I certainly do, because I know the Super Mario Brothers movie was the polar opposite. It actually stopped them from lending out their IP and doing anything with their IP because it was such a disaster. So hopefully, I do think this is going to have that opposite effect. Where it goes from here, will there be a Detective Pikachu 2? That's possible. Will we see? We know the Mario movie's coming from Universal, so we'll see how that goes. I know, like, Brie Larson has stated that she wants to do Samus movie. We'll see where that goes. Honestly, I think the sky's the limit. I think it's a very untapped market. I know that there's a negative stigma based on the previous video game movies, and I'm fairly certain a certain blue hedgehog is probably going to bring that stigma back. Although the director is talking about how they're going to redo them, so that's a good sign. But yeah, I want to see it go places. I know some people have joked about like a Smash Brothers, like an MCU style deal, Detective Pikachu, Sonic, and then moving on to eventually Smash Brothers. That would be awesome. But I don't think Nintendo is aiming to copy what Marvel's done, like certain properties like DC and Universal are. Um, I think they look at the movies as just a side thing, as just a whatever kind of deal. They're not invested in it. They're almost divorced of it. They're like, you guys do it, just make sure it's good. But yeah, I hope so. I really, really hope so. And I guess only time will tell.
Yeah. Yeah. Jakester says he hopes that it gives Sonic some advice on how to actually pull off a good movie. Yeah, I don't really know how the Sonic movie is going to go. I do hope that they do change some things that need to be changed, but I guess we'll see how that one turns out. But I hope it doesn't send us back into the negative, like you said, the impressions that people have had for a long time about video game movies. Can't read. Julio Chavez is joining us. He normally doesn't get to catch us live, but he has a small window today. So thanks for joining us, Julio. Always great to talk with all you guys in the chat during our live stream. So let's turn the page just a little bit. Still talking about Pokemon, because DNA, the company that Nintendo has partnered with for their mobile game outings, has partnered with the Pokemon company. And right now we basically have information that they're going to launch a new Pokemon game before the end of the financial year, which is March 2020. So within the next year, we're going to see a DNA and Pokemon, I'm assuming, mobile game. And that's about all we know, really. That they're bringing a different type of Pokemon game to mobile devices, most likely. We've got the Pokemon Go, which was a runaway success. I even played it this last weekend. I forgot that I played it for a little bit so I can get the Detective Pikachu. So he's now my partner Pokemon in there. But yeah, what do you think about this, Barry? I mean, this is total speculation at this point, but do you think this is a good move? And what do you think this game could be like?
Honestly, I think this is going to probably be a more traditional style Pokemon game. We've had quite a bit of mobile experiences with Pokemon besides Pokemon Go. We had Pokemon Shuffle, we had Pokemon Duel, we had Pokemon Magikarp Jump. So it's not unusual to see a mobile Pokemon game at this point. And honestly, all four of those titles have charm and they're good. They're not, be all end all titles, but they're all worthy, to invest time into and to play. I think Nintendo has honestly been very smart with their mobile strategy. I think they've been, they haven't just been releasing shovelware. They haven't just been releasing, let's just make a quick cash in titles. They're really trying to capture the essence of their IP on mobile phones, and in some cases even creating their brand new IPs. And they're partnering with some good developers, and while Nintendo themselves will not be directly involved, they'll be indirectly involved with the Pokemon company. I have enough faith that they're going to do something. I don't know if they can truly do like a Game Freak's mainline Pokemon style game. Maybe they'll do something like a Pokemon Ranger or a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon.
I don't know.
Or
Jakester's not going to be happy about that. He even mentioned that in the chat. I hope it's not somehow a Mystery Dungeon.
It might not. It might not. Just throwing this out there. It could be, a Pokemon spin-off game like Pokemon Dash from the DS, or even Pokemon Snap. Maybe using your camera and doing something with Pokemon Snap. Who knows? they've done good work so far. And obviously, it's all speculation at this point because we don't know anything. But coming out within a year, that tells me they have some kind of idea already in mind, and they must be working on it right now as we speak.
Yeah. And I wonder, with we got a new Pokemon mainline game coming to Switch really soon, and so I wonder, do you think it's sort of tie-in? I think that could be cool if it was tied into that, but I don't know.
It could be. I mean, they did state they wanted their mobile titles to lead into Switch or 3DS titles, and this very well could be trying to keep that momentum going. I mean, Pokemon Go had such a momentum, and then as it helped Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and then the Let's Go games, and now Sword and Shield. So why not keep the momentum going?
Yeah, that's true. Well, let's turn a little bit to E3 because hopefully maybe one of those things we'll get to hear more about is Pokemon Sword and Shield in just a month, basically. Almost like, is it right at a month?
Less than a month, actually.
Less than a month away. So E3 is almost here, and Nintendo has actually outlined their plans for E3 2019, and essentially it's pretty similar to what they've done in the past. One of the things that they're doing this year is they're actually starting earlier. So they've had Splatoon 2 and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate tournaments that have been going on for a while now, and the finals of those tournaments are typically the ultimate, or the world championships have been at the end of E3 or in the middle of E3 the last couple years. They've kind of tagged it on to the week of, but this year they're actually moving it to the weekend before. So June 8th, they're actually going to wrap up both of those tournaments in the World Championships, and you can watch it both live there online, or you can actually, if you're around Los Angeles, you can go to the Ace Hotel and watch those live. The Splatoon 2 tournament is going to start at 11 a.m. on 11 a.m. Pacific time on June 8th, and the Smash Brothers tournament is basically going to be right after that, which is approximately 2 p.m. Pacific time that day. And then Nintendo Direct is going to be back again, so they're going to continue with their online presentation. No live show there at E3 like they've done for the last several years now, and that's going to be 9 a.m. Pacific on June 11th. So that'd be that Tuesday, which is their normal time slot that they have that. We have no word on how long it's going to be, but we do know that it's going to focus only on software. They've said that it's not going to be a hardware presentation. It's going to be a software presentation. And then the Treehouse Live is going to be available after that day, and then all day on June 12th and all day on June 13th as well. So the Treehouse crew is going to be around to show off a lot of the games that they've talked about during the Direct, give us some more information like they normally do, have some interviews with the developers and things like that. It's kind of find out some behind the scenes sort of things, which is always it's a great time. It's very casual sort of thing. So if you're familiar with what they've done before, this is very similar. And the last thing, they'll also have the booth on the floor, but the last thing that they're actually adding that is new, so the public that actually comes to E3 and you're there for the presentation or for the event itself, you can actually, if you're a Nintendo account member, you can sign up for a thing that they're calling a Warp Pipe Pass, which basically allows you to skip some lines and get a dedicated time to play some of the games, which I think is great. I think is cool, but it's interesting that they kind of took a front row center almost to their press release. So, like, that's a cool thing, but I don't know if that's worthy of like a huge announcement like this. But it's kind of cool that you don't have to stand in line, because if you've ever been to E3, or if you've talked to anybody that's been to E3, you know that the lines are one of the worst things about E3, other than the sickness and all that stuff that you can get the E3 flu. But apart from the sicknesses, the lines are horrible. And so for the general public, if you've bought tickets, you can actually get a Warp Pipe Pass and kind of bypass all that. So Barry, any thoughts about what they're doing at E3 this year? Do you like this? Do you think it's enough? Yeah, just general thoughts.
I mean, it's as safe can be. It's exactly, if you asked this question last week before they revealed this and said, "Hey, what do you think they're going to be doing?" I would have told you virtually the exact same thing, just maybe not in the same order. And obviously, the Warp Pipe Pass is new, but that's for people who are there. It has no effect for the rest of us that are not there. Um, it's exactly what they need to be doing. It's taking the mantra, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, kind of deal. It's been successful for them. This is the third E3 now that Switch is going to be, present. It worked the first two. Why not keep it going? The one thing it's not going to have, at least not in the same presence as Reggie. It's going to be missing the Reginator, and I'm kind of curious to see if they bring him in at all, just for just to say hi, or if they invite him as a special guest, or if his loss is felt in the presentation.
That's
I
a
mean, he
good
hasn't
point.
done Nintendo Directs in a while, but he's done the E3 ones.
That's true. I wonder if they're going to start off with Bowser being animated somehow and connected with Doug Bowser and the new president. If they'll play off on that or what.
Yeah, they could. I mean, who knows? They've done the Robot Chicken stuff. They've done the Mega 64 stuff. They've done the puppets. You really can't count anything out. They had the animated video when the 3DS was shown and Bowser roasted Reggie's face and Iwata got sucked into the 3DS. So anything's possible. You just can't count on anything with them.
That's true. Yeah. So I mean, we're gonna talk a lot about our predictions and stuff in our next podcast. But kind of any further speculation, like what do you think? Just in general, we're gonna see in the Nintendo Direct and possibly the Treehouse itself. Anything that you're like really like, apart from like I said, our predictions in our next show. Anything that you're really hoping for?
I'm not going to get too specific because I do want to save some of that for next podcast. But I will say I'm hoping for some good surprises, as always. But I'm hoping for more than one or two. Like last Nintendo Direct, they threw two surprises, real big surprises at us. Right, the opening with Mario Maker 2, and right at the end with Link's Awakening remade. I want to see, and of course Astro Chain too, right at the end there too. So really, three surprises. Two were huge, it's because of Nintendo IP, and one a brand new IP. I'd like to see more of that, as I think most people would. In addition to updates on existing games that we're wondering about, like Metroid Prime 4 and Bayonetta 3. I want to see less focus on stuff like Fire Emblem, because I think Fire Emblem comes out like less than a month after or so. Like don't talk about it. It's so close to launch. I don't care. Like you've already gotten that. Give us some new stuff. I hope, like last year's I enjoyed, but I know if you weren't a fan of Smash Brothers, you got like 15 minutes worth of stuff and then it was all Smash Brothers. So I do hope that it doesn't focus on one title too long. Like I don't want I'd rather I almost have a 25-minute video that focused on everything within 3 to 4 minutes tops versus a 45-minute video that focused on 5 things with 20 minutes each or something like that. Like leave some anticipation. Give me a good trailer, give me some gameplay footage, give me some details, whet my appetite, but don't overload it, especially if it's like, hey, this is coming out in the summer or in the summer, in the fall or winter, or even 2020. Like, don't make me so hyped that I now have to agonizingly wait, a half a year to a year. Do just enough to whet my appetite. Like what they did with Zelda was perfect. With Link's Awakening was perfect. What they did with Mario Maker 2, that was perfect. We don't need go into every little bit of detail. Just whet the appetite and move on. And if they can do like the headlines that they do, but with every one of those being a big hitting thing, I think that'd be amazing.
That could be for sure. Hey, Greg, how's it going?
Hey, good. I guess I got right in time for Barry's rant.
Yeah. Oh,
That wasn't a
he's
rant.
not had any rants yet. Yeah.
It's like, no Fire Emblem. What? That's a rant.
No, that's
I just don't want to see things that are coming out like I don't want to see Mario Maker 2 there. Like, let it be on the show floor, but I don't think it's necessary to put it in the E3 Direct when it comes out in like two and a half weeks. Like, people are already sold on Mario Maker 2. We don't need it taking up, especially when they say, "Oh, it's only 35 minutes." And if they put 5 minutes to Fire Emblem and 5 minutes to Mario Maker 2, two games that are coming out within a month or so, that's like almost a third of the presentation of E3, our Christmas in June, taken up by games we already sold on.
Well, I mean, I think at least in Fire Emblem's case, I think they've shown off very little of the game, though.
But they had like no, it wasn't the last direct. It was maybe what was the last direct where they had like a huge chunk like devoted to Fire Emblem. It felt like 10 to 15 minutes or so.
And we still don't know much about it, which is funny because they dedicated a lot of time. There's still so much unknown.
I don't think anything else needs to be said. If you're a Fire Emblem fan, you're going to get the game anyways. They already devoted so much to it.
Yeah, I'm not saying you need to like go like super in depth like Smash Brothers last year, but for them to like not mention it at all, I don't think that's really going to happen.
I think it should be a headline. Hey, as a reminder, Fire Emblem comes out next, in next month.
Here's the latest
reminder
trailer.
Not even a trailer. Here's a reminder of it. Just a reminder. Or you know what? I have a feeling they're going to show Fire Emblem at the Treehouse, and I think that's where it needs to be. I don't think it needs to be in the E3 presentation. That's direct. I think it needs to be at the Treehouse.
Because in a way, they really do. I think we talked about this last year too in our recaps, but just how what Treehouse really does for them is it takes that hour-long or 2-hour-long presentation that a lot of the companies did for so long, and it basically extends it over 3 days. So you get to see all the trailers, the big stuff, the bang it all out, all the big announcements, make a lot of hype around it. And then all the gameplay and all the talks and everything about it, they get to last over the next basically 3 days, 2.5 days of doing that instead of trying to cram it all in a 2-hour session that's, it kind of bores some people depending on if you like the game or not. And so they can really expand upon it over those next few days.
Yeah, like Mario Maker 2 is going to be at the Treehouse. They're going to show it off. They're going to remind people. They're going to show off levels and stuff. But it really, outside of a 10-second period or so, just to mention it, remind people it's coming out, I don't really think it needs to be there in the presentation. As long as it doesn't take away from something else. Like, we're only going to make this 40 minutes, and we could talk about this brand new game, or even this lesser known game that people don't know about, or that we haven't even talked about yet. Or we could talk about Mario Maker 2 that comes out in 2 weeks. Okay, let's talk about Mario Maker 2 instead. That's what you have the Treehouse for.
Yeah. Greg, any thoughts about what Nintendo is doing this year for E3? It's like we've talked about already. It's basically the same as what they've done in the past years. The dates have switched around, like for the tournaments, and they've added this Warp Pipe Pass for people that are there live. But so not a whole lot of new things this year. Any thoughts about that?
I pretty much think that they'll probably just stay true to the course. I mean, I know as much as Barry probably hates to hear it, but I think that they'll still be covering the games that come out in just whatever a month's time. They always are pushing the games that are coming out within the next year or so. So unfortunately, Mario Maker 2 does come out. It might have a new trailer. It could probably show off a really cool feature like co-op or 2-player mode. That's been a commonly requested feature. You can't exactly just announce that in the middle of Treehouse where not everyone's attention might be at that precise moment. But again, I mean, I'm not saying devote 15 minutes and do a Smash Brothers like super in depth of Mario Maker and go through all the building tools and everything like that. No, that's definitely not. But I wouldn't think like a new 1 or 2 minute trailers out of the question that shows some of the new features that they haven't announced yet.
That would be as far as it would take it. 1 or 2 minutes, I think, would be fine. But anything else, longer, I think, would be overkill.
Yeah, and that's why I think Fire Emblem will probably have a trailer as well. Maybe Animal Crossing, probably. I would imagine Link's Awakening, the remake, will probably have another trailer. I mean,
Well, don't go too in depth.
and
We're
obviously
doing
they'll.
that. We're doing that next podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well, I'm not
but
gonna
yeah,
be here
I
next
think
podcast.
that's true. But I think you got a point though, Greg. I think it's while like Barry, you're talking a lot about what you would hope. We also have to base it in reality. So that's what Greg is saying too. Like, man, that like even though this is how we would like this direct to go, we also know Nintendo typically does stick to their guns and a lot of this stuff. And so even though maybe we don't really need more than just a headline, hit it and move on, Nintendo does sometimes spend more time on some of those announcements than they need to.
It's funny because like I do a lot of live reaction watching for directs. I just find it fascinating to see people's reactions, and it's funny when like a case like this will happen and Nintendo will be like, all right, here's now Mario Maker 2, like after the fact, like we know, and people say, oh, what's this? It's that game I already know. Like you just see like them get hyped and deflate like so quickly. Like, oh, it's just that. Like we already know about that. Like I don't care about it. Like,
Yeah.
or even if
Well, yeah,
I care about it, like I want to see something else.
I mean, obviously, in the perfect world, you'd get every single game would be a new game, but that's not really the reality of the way Nintendo approaches it. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, of course.
I wonder if Nintendo actually does watch those videos, because I mean that's really one of the ways that they can see how the public is reacting to them. Not only just the the articles and stuff like that goes out after and the news postings and stuff, but those live reactions are really a way to see how the general public and the devoted fans really are reacting to not only their announcements but how they're announcing it.
well, yeah, I mean, I also wanted to jump in. I mean, even on Metroid Prime 4, I mean, you see so many reaction videos, everyone's cheering and clapping, and then there'd be some other reaction videos like, where's the gameplay? Why is it just a title screen? Show me the gameplay? And then you have these really negative Nancy's out there that are just like have to see like the gameplay, and they're just trying to make a cool announcement. So
You're
Right.
always going to get that, sadly.
Right, which is true. Yeah, a lot of them just are gonna, and they're gonna. Some people are gonna react in certain ways just to get the views as well. So. Speaking of which, let's talk briefly about our E3 plans. So we got Nintendo's E3 plans. Let's talk about our E3 plans. So one of the things that we're going to do this year is our podcast plans. As you guys know, we record every other week, and so last year we recorded podcasts the week before and the week after, just the way the calendar landed up that year. But this year, we actually our podcast is set to record the week of E3 this year, and so we're actually going to push it to Tuesday so that we can recap all the stuff that happened, so the tournaments, all the other announcements and stuff from all the other game companies, and also Nintendo's Direct as well. So we're going to push the next podcast. It's going to be look at the calendar here, not on June 10th. It would normally be on June 10th. It'd be on
the next podcast.
June 11th. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that podcast. So our next one is in a couple weeks, but that particular one, which would be episode 176, will be on that Tuesday instead of the Monday, so that we can spend the entire time recapping and discussing all the announcements from E3. And one of the things that kind of before we get into the further announcements, I forgot to bring this up, is that we know that Sony is not doing their typical thing as well. I think, Barry, you said that there's another company that's taking their spot.
Yeah, I think Square Enix has taken their time slot. So, like,
what do you think this is? Do you think Sony bowing out, and then Nintendo is not bowed out, but they've changed? Several years ago they switched to the direct model and everything. Sony doing something different. Who knows what Microsoft's going to do? Do you think this is a trend, or do you think this is how it's going to be? What do you think, Greg?
I don't know. I almost, I mean, I really do love seeing like the shows and everything, but I think like Nintendo's approached it from like a smarter like cost perspective and makes it easier for everyone to see. And I think Sony is probably a try on board to try this out to see how they get their reactions. I mean, maybe they'll be back full force next year. I don't know, but I think this is like their year to try it out, and depending on their level of success, then who knows, maybe Microsoft might be pursuing this kind of route on their own as well. I mean, I know a lot of companies are trying to do like direct to consumer like relations, and this is usually the way to do it. I mean, you can really speak to like all your fans. They can all watch and tune in live to the video that you set out, and Nintendo's been doing that for quite a while with the directs, and I guess maybe it's slowly starting to turn that way, but it's kind of unfortunate because E3 is a time where we all look forward to the greatest games and newest ones are coming out and all the announcements. And if Sony's not going to really be announcing anything at that time, then it's kind of like almost a blow to E3 in general. So I wouldn't want to see that to go down. I kind of liked watching the E3s over the years. So.
Yeah, that's true. Barry, what do you think about this? What the plans are with Sony and where this might go?
I think Sony is doing a little experimentation right now. They're doing their state of plays, which are essentially their Nintendo Directs, just nowhere near as exciting. And I think Sony just doesn't have a lot to announce right now. That the PS4 is in its twilight years. The PS5 is certainly coming. And they canceled PSX last year. They didn't have enough to show, and that was costly. These are costly shows. So I think they're going to see how E3 goes this year. They're going to see what they have up in store next year. And I think they will be back the following year, provided they have something to show off, something worthy to show off, aka they have the PS5. And then if they decide to only do E3 shows when they have new hardware or new big things, I don't know. Sony the last year made their presentation far more expensive than they needed to just for dramatics and atmosphere, and it was the most awkward of all shows with the changing of the venues and everything going on. I don't see Microsoft bowing out, although if you really think about it, Microsoft doesn't really have a reason to bow out because they host it not at E3. Technically, they host it in the Microsoft Theater, so they own the theater. So why not take advantage of it? And EA doesn't do theirs at E3; they do it at another theater. So very, very few. I think maybe even Ubisoft might be the only one, and maybe Square. And Square doesn't do it every year. They didn't do one last year. Square also only does it when they have stuff to show off. They're there. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be that much of a negative thing, because I think it's more negative that Sony doesn't have space. Like they're skipping E3 entirely. Like they don't have show space. And I think people look at the press conferences as the actual event, and all those to actually take place before E3 starts. And for us, for those that are not actually physically there, those are the event for us. Outside of like the treehouse, we really don't get to experience anything that's on the show floor other than seeing people's videos of it. But Sony not even having a presence at the show, not even taking that space, that is a bigger blow to E3 in my opinion. And I also think I think that's cocky Sony. I think that's PS2 era Sony, where they think they're untouchable and on top of the world and they could do no wrong. And I think they're making a mistake without at least having some presence on the show floor.
Yeah. Well, it is weird that Nintendo seems to have leaned in to the presence on the show floor, having the Warp Pipe Pass. I mean, yeah, it's not something that that us, that are not there, are going to be able to enjoy, but they've leaned into the general audience that are going to be there to give them another chance, a better chance to play these games. And as someone has been to, Greg and I have been to E3 in past years. I remember, Sony and Nintendo back-to-back booths, and it was like this like very obvious competition thing there. And it'd be so weird not to have the Sony booth right next to the Nintendo booth, for sure. I want to go to the chat, and only 3 Penguins is saying that it's partly because they have nothing further to show. Talking of Sony, for the PS4, but the PS5 is still too far out to give any real details for it yet, which we've talked about. Julio Chavez saying that I think E3 is cool, but the direct lives work better, more more people get to watch more cost-effective for the game companies. Word of mouth after the directs is how I hear most about the games and things like that. So which it is true a lot of times. I think one of the things we've discussed in previous podcast is the one thing you miss is that crowd response. When things are announced in a live show, you don't get that crowd response of things and being there and having your hands on. Maybe that's a thing in the past now. Nintendo Directs have been, pretty successful in possibly overcoming that sort of thing. Only Three Penguins is also saying, consider that there's never been a Nintendo Direct that is been disastrously received as the worst of their older E3 conference shows, which is kind of direct. I mean, Greg, were you there with me for the now infamous Mario the fireworks part of Nintendo's presentation?
Nintendo Land.
Yeah, the Nintendo Land.
I don't think I was there for that. It was the one I went to was for more Smash Brothers for Wii U.
Oh, right. Yes, that one was focused on that. Yeah. So that was, I was there in person for that one, and that was weird. And so we haven't had a direct that's been, that bad. And so overall, it seems like the directs have been a good move. They've avoided the really, really bad moves that they've done in the past with the live shows, for sure.
Well, I do enjoy their more creativeness that they used to do, like with the puppets and some the animation styles and stuff like that. I really miss that.
The puppets was a Nintendo Direct.
Well, it was the E3 special thing, where they were dressed up as the Star Fox guys and stuff.
Yeah, but that was still a Nintendo Direct. That wasn't a live show.
I understand that. I'm saying that I miss those styles of the directs as opposed to just the immediate trailers and headlines that they do.
Right.
More of a production quality.
Yeah.
They might do that again, though. You can't count them out on doing it. I mean, Reggie's no longer there, and obviously Iwata's not there, and maybe those are two of the figureheads that really push towards it. But who knows? Maybe Bowser has a different taste and says, "Hey, E3 is an American thing. Here's what I want to do."
Yeah.
I wonder if they actually had the Bowser actually talking as Bowser.
Greg and I were thinking alike. Actually, that's what I talked about that before you jumped in. It'd be interesting how they started off, and if they involve Reggie in it at all, or if he's just totally out of the picture now and they just let Bowser run things, or if it's who knows how this is actually how it's gonna look this year, for sure.
So I could sure open up that with Super Mario Maker 2.
That's true. Get that out of the way so Barry doesn't have to think about it anymore. So. Let's move on. Just as a little couple small things as we wrap up today. Tetris 99 received an update. Oh, wait. Before we jump on to Tetris 99, we also are going to do a live reaction. Forgot about to announce that. So E3, we're going to do a live reaction. We'll talk more details at our next podcast. We are going to post another live reaction of us watching that as well. So we talked about other sites and other YouTube channels out there do live reactions. So we're also going to have a live reaction like we did last year, so you can see how we react to if there is any Mario Maker stuff, and see Barry just upset and in real time. So. And then
without cheering for me.
That's right. Multiple live reactions at the same time. They may be polar opposites. We'll see. Okay. So enough E3 for now. Let's talk about Tetris 99. It got an update. Some of us all of us, I'm pretty sure, had speculated about how it'd be cool if eventually Tetris 99 did get some updates and some different modes. And that's exactly what happened. So last week on May 9th, we got an update that included Big Block DLC. You can get it as a season pass for $9.99. And that includes 2 new updates right now. First of all, there's a CPU battle. So it's basically the same thing as the online battle of the 99 players, the Battle Royale, except for you go against computer players, and marathon mode. So that's your basic single player Tetris mode has been added, but there's supposed to be more modes coming later. So the Big Block DLC is a season pass, so you'll get the future updates that they do announce as well. So both of those modes, the important thing is that both of those modes are offline modes. So right now, or up until last week, the game could only be played online, and if you have a Nintendo online account. But now the game can be played offline for the CPU battle and the marathon mode. And also, they brought back the third Maximus Cup, which will be on May 17th, May 17th as well. And if you do get 100 points over that 3-day period, you're going to gain a Game Boy in-game theme for the game. So Barry, did you actually? I don't think any of us bought the DLC. Is that correct, Greg? Did you get it all?
No, I did not. I haven't even played the online version yet.
Oh, really?
I downloaded it, but because I wanted to play it, but I haven't played it online yet.
Yeah. So none of us have bought it. Let's talk about why. Why haven't we bought it? Like Barry, why not download the DLC for Tetris 99?
If it was free, I would, but I played Tetris 99. I enjoyed it, but it was one of those I saw, I enjoyed, I moved on already. If I want to play offline Tetris, I can, like marathon mode, I can do that on almost any system right now. I can even boot up my CDI and play offline Tetris. Like the marathon mode, or not the marathon, the against CPU with 99. That's interesting, but again, it's not $10 interesting. At least not to me, not right now. That's just how I feel.
Yep, I agree with that. Greg, what do you think?
Yeah, I do think it's overpriced to have at least the center mode or just the marathon be charged separately, because pretty much all the Tetris games have had that mode, and at least the most recent ones have had some form of multiplayer, I think, as well too. So
yeah, that's the thing I think that might set me over if I have like events and stuff to go to. So back when I lived in New England and could go to PAX East and other events like that a lot more often, something like a local multiplayer, like a sort of thing like that, could have convinced me to get that, because I think of days back in like Tetris DS and those great times where you like gather people together and play Tetris like that. That's awesome. But right now I already can play online for free. I can't play against friends because it's just random, which if they had that might convince me. But the local multiplayer, that could convince me if I have the right places to play. But like you guys have said, marathon, I can play single player Tetris on the other like 70 copies of Tetris that I have for other systems and on my phone and other things. So that's not really that yet, but this 98 player, CPU battle, cool. If I was really into online, it could be a good way to practice. I could say like offline and do a lot of practice, but I'm not into the game that much to be able to buy a $10 DLC just to practice for this. So yeah, as it stands right now, I'm going to still stay away from it. But if they add some different modes, I could see myself possibly being tempted to get it later down the line if they add the right modes, but not with these two.
Yeah, I have to see some more about what's being included, or if they're just going to continue to piecemeal it together and be like, oh, those two modes are $10, and then you can buy local multiplayer mode and some other like Tetris Attack for like $10. I mean, I really don't like the piecemeal like setting. Just give me the
It's
all
not.
the features.
It's $9.99 for these two modes and every additional thing they add. So it's not really. It's piecemeal, but it's not. You're paying that You're not paying for piecemeal.
Does it actually like say for like every update, or is it just like?
Okay. Yeah, it's a season pass, so you get all the future updates that they haven't announced what they are yet, but it does say that it will cover the future updates.
Oh, yeah, because I know from some seasons passes, it's like, oh, here's season 1 season pass, now season 2 seasons pass. So
I get what you were coming from there for sure. Yeah,
so
I think if they added all the all the features and everything of Tetris DS and just basically recreated it on the Switch, that could get my money. I think it could get a lot of people's money.
Yeah, that definitely get mine.
For sure. Do you guys play in the Maximus Cup at all?
Nope.
All right, me either. I played in the first one, which I do like. They changed it. Like now you get points no matter what. You don't have to just win, which is cool. The Game Boy in-game theme does make me almost want to play it, but I've got too many things going on this weekend. I'm not going to be able to make it happen. But it's cool. I'm glad that they did make that switch with how you gain points just for playing, not actually winning, which I think it makes it more accessible for people for sure. Let's move on. Another quick thing. The NES online keeps growing. This actually tomorrow, is that right? No, Wednesday, we're going to be getting 3 more games: Donkey Kong Jr. versus Excite Bike and Clue Land. I just thought it'd be interesting, like to get your guys' read on the NES online library so far. Do you play it at all, or is this is kind of a thing that exists on your Switch, but you don't really touch it? Greg, what's your thoughts on the NES online lately?
Yeah, mostly it's just been just a collection thing I've had. I mean, earlier months I was playing it a lot more just because I like the selections of games, and then there hasn't really been too many that come out over the last pretty much this year actually that have really wanted me to dive back into the app and be like, oh, I really have to play this game again. So
yeah, pretty much same here. Barry, have you booted up the NES online lately?
I think I did a couple weeks ago, but just to mess around. I mean, the selection of games I think is fine. The problem is that it's not as compelling to go and play them because it's just the NES games. And like a lot of like for me, most of these games I grew up with, and there's some great games. Like they added Star Tropics. I love Star Tropics. I want a Star Tropics 3, but I don't really want to sit down and replay Star Tropics 1 right now. I've got too many other games to play. So it's not like a pick up and play game. It's an adventure game. It's like Zelda. You're going to sit there for hours. And for the quick play games, I've picked them up, I've played them. But I really am hoping to finally get some Super Nintendo games or Game Boy games or anything other than NES games, because it seems with them releasing 2 a month with special stuff, but you're about 2 a month, 2 to 3, it's going to take them years before they get through the entire library. What would excite me more is if they started bringing over more Japanese exclusive titles, like Devil World. Bring Devil World over. Mario Lost Levels is there, which was previously Japanese exclusive, but we've had it already on the Super Nintendo. That's what I'd like to see. Like when the Virtual Console came out, it was an interesting thing, and obviously a lot of people loved it. But for me, the best part about the Virtual Console was getting foreign titles, like Sin and Punishment on the N64, which we never got here. Like bring foreign NES games, stuff that we didn't get.
Earthbound Beginnings.
Earthbound Beginnings is absolutely one. How about the original Fire Emblems? Translate them and bring them over. It's right for Greg.
Yep.
There you go. Yeah. It seems like they're almost kind of trying to recreate the Wii and the Virtual Console, but it's not. You can't really do that as much because it's not as a new concept like it was at that time. This is like, we've already got these games because we've got the original copies. I've got the Wii one. I got it on Wii U, and I've got it on my 3DS. I don't like. It's cool, but it's not as exciting and new as it once was when they first started doing this sort of thing. So yeah, it'd be great. The chat, people are saying, give us more third-party games as well. Only Three Penguins said he'd play it more if he actually had one of the wireless NES controllers. And Greg actually has one of those. Has it made you play the game more? The NES Online more?
I wish. No, it was more. I definitely got more for the collector's part of it. I mean, but I did anticipate to try to play with them. I just actually haven't. As I said, like my interest in the app is kind of already kind of turned down a little bit until they release something that I really am dying to play on the NES. But like Earthbound Beginnings, I would replay that one. Sure. Yeah. I didn't quite get very far in Wii U. I'd play it again.
Watch them come out with Mother 3 on the NES Online. And finally get people to play it. All right. Let's wrap up with this other it's a quick news story, but I think it's worth mentioning that Reggie is no longer the president of Nintendo of America, but he's kind of stepped into this other role in his retirement, kind of helping other business people and other businesses and people that are trying to start businesses, and he started speaking at colleges and things like that, and he just gave the commencement speech at the Ringling College graduation recently, and he also did this interview with the Sarasota Herald Tribune afterwards, and you can watch that online. But I think we all got a chance to watch that. Anything stand out from that interview, or what we know Reggie is doing that kind of just stands out to you guys in this? Barry,
I like,
anything stand out?
When he said he was retiring to spend time with his family and friends and stuff, and I admired that. I think everyone should appreciate that time. But the fact that he's still devoting his time to educate and to encourage the future business leaders of America, really, I think it's good. I think he's a success story, and he's very inspirational. He's very motivational, and I'd love it if, at my graduation, if Reggie gave a speech, I'd be like, holy crap, it's Reggie Fils-Aimé. So I think that's a good thing. I mean, he doesn't have to do this. I mean, he could just sit at home with his family and friends for the rest of the time. But he's still getting out there. He's still trying to help. He said he was trying to be on several boards, like larger boards. I don't know what those are going to entail. And who knows? Maybe because of his previous position, he could push some good people Nintendo's way. I mean, he parted on good terms. I can't imagine there being any bad blood there, and I wouldn't surprise me to see Reggie at E3 in some way, even just as a guest, just like, oh, come on Treehouse, look, it's Reggie, he's here, how is things? And it wouldn't surprise me to see him at the Game Awards as a presenter, just like former president of Nintendo. Like, I can see him still staying in the industry in some regards, but more like picking and choosing, and that's what he's doing here. He's picking and choosing, and he's choosing to be inspirational for young adults, and I think that's great. I mean, how could you be against that?
That's true. I'm kind of envious of that. Like, how cool would it be just like, you know what, I've made all the money I really need to make. I've done a lot of cool stuff. You know what, I'm just going to retire now and just go do the stuff I want to do now. Like, go and inspire and educate young business leaders, and just to kind of go out and hang out with other people that I want to hang out with, like my family, and maybe people I didn't get to hang out with for the last several years because I was running Nintendo of America, and just get to have fun now. And to be able to do that, like, Reggie's still fairly young to be retired. So that must be awesome. Greg, what do you think about Reggie's post-retirement life?
Yeah, it's definitely great. I'm really glad to hear that he's like still educating and still talking to kids and everything. That's awesome. Like Barry said, I wish he could come to give my graduation speech like years ago. That would have been awesome. But no, he was a little bit too busy with the GameCube and Wii at that time. So, but I did like how he was really like interested in making sure that the kids are still creating and everything. Like, he was touched on that. Like, he really loves that aspect, and that's kind of like why he's been at Nintendo. And I definitely like see that, and really great that he's trying to inspire people to continue creating and continue working and doing, keep at it and everything. It's just a very positive message and everything. So that's just, yep.
Cool. Yeah. Agree to keep it up, Reggie. Keep it up, because we know Reggie listens to these podcasts for sure. Maybe he does now as in retirement. So for sure. Jakester hopefully comes to his graduation next month. Jakester, you should contact him. I hear he's a little more free now, so maybe he'll come to your graduation. So yeah.
I also did like how he bragged on how many Twitter followers he has too.
It's great. He soared like so fast. Like, it was awesome. I'm glad to see he's on there now. It would have been great to have him on there before, but it's great to be able still stay in contact with him and in a way and indirectly and be able to see what he's up to. And so if you're not following Reggie on Twitter, you should. Isn't it just at Reggie? Pretty sure. And
he's just at Reggie.
He's posting about like what he's doing and what he's excited about and everything too. So he's a good follow on Twitter for sure.
Barry, you gotta get him on for an industry chat.
I sent him a message. Whether he accepts it or not is a whole different ball game.
Right. That's what we need to do now is we need to send out the NintendoFuse podcast listeners and say, you know what we need you to do is just hound him on Twitter and any other way that you know how to contact Reggie. We want him on Industry Talk. We want him on a podcast. We want to just somehow we need some contact with Reggie and be able to do an interview with him, talk about all this stuff that we want to talk about with him. So do your thing, get him on there, get him to notice NintendoFuse, and we would thank you so much. Post about his followers. Yeah. So like just contact his followers, try to start something up. You guys are so much better at this than we are. So just kind of get it out there. And who knows, maybe the next podcast will be announcing that Reggie's coming on soon. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I don't think you have any problems of getting other people to join that industry talk, Barry.
I had to be fighting you guys off.
For sure.
All of a sudden, like Mike and Blake and everybody else will be like, "Let's go up. I'm on there. Let me on."
The whole team interviews him. So. Oh man, it's been great to talk with you guys again and have so many people in the chat just joining in throughout the night. It's always great to hear what you guys are saying as well. If you have not subscribed to us, be sure to do that and hit that bell to be alerted about every new video that we post on YouTube. If you're listening to us on your podcast apps for the audio version, be sure to subscribe on there and share us out with others. Leave us a positive review if you enjoy the NintendoFuse podcast. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. Join our Discord, all that stuff. But before we wrap up, we do want to talk about what we're hoping to play and experience over the next couple weeks before our next podcast. So, Greg, what's going on over the next couple weeks that you're really hoping to get your hands on?
Well, I really want to continue Yoshi. I haven't really done that in the last 2 weeks. It'd be nice to play some more out of that. I'm pretty close to purchasing Final Fantasy VII, so I might be getting into that. Yeah, those are the two main ones on my radar right now.
Cool. Barry, what's on your radar for the next couple of weeks?
I'm honestly not sure. I've been debating doing the Phoenix Wright games on the Switch, or also debating Dragon's Dogma. I'm not totally sure what is coming out in the next 2 weeks, but those are two titles that have been on my backlog that I'm like, maybe I'll give them a shot. There's so much. There's so many things coming out.
There really is. Yeah. I was looking at the list and I mean, we got some big games coming out over the next couple weeks. Like I think tomorrow Sniper Elite V3 V2 remastered comes out. And then we got Resident Evil Origins Collection comes out on May 21st. Same day, Team Sonic Racing comes out. Assassin's 3 Remastered comes out then. Also Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil all coming out, and Resident Evil 0 all coming out. Of course, the Origins Collection, and then you can buy them individually and everything. All coming out on May 21st. So that's like a big day for sure. Let's see. Oh, there's one that I thought Barry, I know you're going to be getting, and I think Greg might be excited about it. Another game called Little Friends, Dogs and Cats.
Oh yeah,
of course.
When is that coming out?
May 27th.
May 27th. Yeah,
so near the end of this month.
That one my wife is interested in because she liked Nintendogs.
There you go. So maybe we'll be able to talk about that.
Barry's already got it.
I have it pre-ordered. Yep, I do.
Yep, it is a physical copy. So
physical copy. I got it pre-ordered.
Gotta do it. Gotta do it.
I got it.
Yeah, there's some great games. I've been looking into Team Sonic Racing a little bit. I'm not sure if I'll get it or not. I've always been more of a Mario Kart fan, but I'm interested in it. I love the idea of the Resident Evil games, but to be honest, I already own Resident Evil 4, and so I'm like, do I need to buy it again? I own Assassin's Creed 3 already too, so do I need to buy that again too? So I'm not really sure.
But you have Assassin's Creed 3 portably.
That is true.
And you don't have Assassin's Creed 3 on Switch.
I can take it kind of portably when I play it on my Wii U around my house. So no.
Don't get too far from that system now.
Let's see. Only 3 Penguins is excited about Dragon's Dogma. And Phoenix Wright. Yeah, there's some cool stuff coming up over the next couple weeks. So yeah, we'll talk about that on our next podcast. Along with most of our next podcast is going to be dedicated to E3 predictions. And here's the deal: because we're all in the United States, we're going to honor Memorial Day on May 27th, and so that's a Monday. And we normally record on Monday evenings, but because of it being Memorial Day, we're not going to throw off our entire schedule. We're just going to move that to Tuesday, so to be May 28th instead of May 27th for the next podcast. So if you're used to tuning in on Monday evenings to watch us live, just tuning on Tuesday evening instead, same time, same channel and all that stuff, but just a different day, one day later, which we'll also do the following podcast, as I mentioned earlier. The following podcast after that, which would be June 11th, is also on a Tuesday because of E3 and plans around there. So the next 2 podcasts, the live recording will be on a Tuesday instead of Monday night. After those 2, we'll jump back on a regular Monday night schedule. But just kind of mark your calendars around that if you do plan on tuning in live, which we always urge you to do because we love interacting with you guys in the chat and hearing your thoughts about all the news that we talk about, what you've been playing and everything. It's great to kind of extend it beyond us 3 and kind of include you in the conversations as well. Speaking of which, if you've not sent in a question, you have something for us to talk about in a future podcast, we would love for you to send us an email. You can just do that at podcast@nintendofuse.com. You can send us questions on social media as well, and just say, hey, I'd love for you guys to discuss this in your next podcast. Send us that question, and we'll address that in a future show. But yeah, until May 28th, we'll see you on social media and everything else. Greg, it's been great to talk with you. Sorry I didn't make the whole podcast, but it's great to get you for the last half.
Yeah, great having me on. I love being on here. And thanks, everybody.
Yeah, for sure. And Barry, it's always great to talk games with you.
Pleasure's all mine.
Yeah. Well, until next time, May 28th, next show. And until then, happy gaming, everybody.
Have a good night.
See ya.